Final question. For Germany, there's a friend-enemy distinction, but should Germany also watch its friends more closely?
Well, in the German case, its best friend in the world is the United States. Or at least most Germans think that its best friend in the world is the United States. And the Germans, in my opinion, have for too long had a tendency to follow Uncle Sam and do what Uncle Sam wants Germany to do. I think it would be in Germany's national interest, and I've argued this for a long time, to have a more independent foreign policy, and when it disagrees with the United States, to make that clear. And I think the best example to highlight this, and it is a truly important story I'm going to tell, that in April 2008, when NATO decided that Ukraine was going to become a member, Georgia and Ukraine were both going to become members, Angela Merkel, who was then the German chancellor and was at the meeting in Bucharest, that NATO meeting in April 2008 in Bucharest, Angela Merkel was adamantly opposed to bringing Ukraine into NATO, and as was Nicolas Sarkozy. And Merkel later said that the reason she was opposed is that she understood that Putin would interpret it as a declaration of war. In a very important way, Angela Merkel was thinking like a hard-headed realist in April 2008. And she went to great lengths to prevent George W. Bush, who was then the president and who was in Bucharest and was pushing for bringing Ukraine and Georgia into NATO, to prevent that. She and Sarkozy tried to prevent it, and they failed. They caved to the United States. I believe that if they had not caved, that if Angela Merkel had stood her ground and said, under no circumstances am I going to go along with bringing Ukraine into NATO, that the war would not have happened, and we would be in much better shape today. Much better shape. But this is just another example of the Europeans, in the end, doing what the Americans want. And this, I think, is more true of Germany than almost any other country in Europe. Maybe Britain is as bad as Germany on this count. But I don't think that it makes sense for the Germans to always follow American dictates. Sometimes it does. There's no question that sometimes the Americans are pursuing policies that are in Germany's interests, and German leaders will sign on to those policies, and that's all for the good. But states don't always have the same interests, and sometimes leaders like Angela Merkel are thinking more smartly than leaders like George W. Bush. And in those cases, I think it makes eminently good sense for a German leader, Angela Merkel in this case, to stand her ground.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for those thoughts. Thank you, Professor Mearsheimer, for your thoughts. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and I wish you all best for your voice to be heard, to continue to be heard, because it's one of the few voices of sanity in a quite turbulent situation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure being here, Max.